The words just hung there in the air. I want a divorce. It wasn't a discussion. It was a declaration. Then came the 6 words that really shoved me off a cliff: you should talk to my lawyer. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, was outsourcing our breakup. He wasn't just leaving me, he was delegating me. In that moment, the shock was so absolute, it was like all the sound in the room just vanished. The only thing I could hear was a loud ringing in my own ears. They say divorce is 95% emotional and only 5% legal. But when the very first person you have to talk to about the end of your world is a total stranger paid to protect his interests, that 5% feels like a lie. This isn't just a story about getting your heart broken. It's about what happens when love gets replaced by litigation, and the person you knew better than anyone becomes just a name on a legal document. It's the story of that bizarre, surreal first meeting with his lawyer, and everything that came after. It's weird what your brain does in moments like that. Standing there, completely reeling, my mind started frantically scrolling through our life together, like I was looking for clues I'd missed. Were there signs? Red flags I'd just painted white. I mean, no marriage is perfect, right? We had our issues. We'd argue about money, or what we wanted for the future. There were definitely nights the silence was heavier than anything we could have said. But I always thought that was just the normal friction of 2 lives rubbing up against each other, not giant cracks in the foundation. My mind flashed to our wedding day. The way he looked at me. The promises we made. We had all these dreams. We bought a little house with a garden we swore we'd get to one day. We got a dog. We even had a list of baby names we both loved. We were building a world, piece by piece, full of our own inside jokes and traditions. The rhythm of our life was so intertwined. We were a team. That was my whole identity. The thought of it just dissolving? It felt physically impossible. It's the little things that hit the hardest, you know? The way he'd make coffee and leave a cup on my nightstand before work. The sound of his keys in the door. The weight of his arm around me while we were just watching movies on the couch. I thought all those tiny, beautiful moments were the threads weaving us closer, making us stronger. I was just so sure about the life we were building, so focused on the us, that I was completely blindsided. I was left standing in the rubble of a demolition I never even saw coming. The days after his little announcement were just a blur. It's funny how denial works. It wraps you up in this thick fog so you can just keep breathing. I kept waking up, and for a split second, I'd forget. I'd expect him to roll over and say it was all some horrible, cruel joke. But the empty space in our bed and the silence in the house were a constant, brutal reminder. It was obvious he had checked out long before he actually said the words. And then, the email came. It was from his lawyer's office. So polite. So professional. Requesting a meeting. Seeing our marriage reduced to a subject line, regarding the marital dissolution of his name and my name, was like a whole new level of shock. It felt obscene. So cold and clinical. Making that call to schedule the appointment? One of the hardest things I've ever done. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely dial. The paralegal on the other end was efficient, detached. I was just another name in her calendar, another case file. For her, it was just business. For me, it was the methodical dismantling of my life. Walking into that law office felt like I was betraying everything we'd ever been. Polished wood, leather books, hushed voices, it was the last place on earth I ever wanted to be. His lawyer was this woman in a perfectly tailored suit. She wasn't mean, but she was firm. Her loyalty wasn't to fairness, or to the memory of our marriage. It was to her client. My husband. She slid a folder across the huge, polished table. He has outlined his proposed terms for the separation, she said, her voice completely flat. I opened it, and the words just swam in front of my eyes. Division of assets. spousal support, property. Our entire life, our home, our future, all broken down into a sterile, legal checklist. The whole conversation was about what he wanted, what he was offering. There was no space for my feelings, for my confusion. It wasn't a conversation. It was a transaction. And I was getting a really bad deal. I honestly don't remember much of what I said in that meeting. I think I just nodded a lot. I might have asked a question or two, but my own voice sounded like it was coming from a million miles away. The real breaking point wasn't one specific thing she said. It was the crushing weight of it all. Sitting in a stranger's office, discussing the end of my marriage while my husband was, who knows where. It was how cold and impersonal it all was, when it should have been the most personal thing in the world. He didn't just decide to end our marriage, he made it clear he wasn't willing to face any of the messy, emotional parts with me. He hired someone to do his dirty work. I managed to hold it together until I got back to my car. And then I just completely fell apart. The grief I'd been trying to keep in a box just crashed over me. It wasn't just sadness. It was this profound loss for a future that had just vanished. The family we were supposed to be, the old couple we were supposed to grow into, it all just died in that sterile, air-conditioned office. The pain was physical. My chest actually ached. Then came the anger, this hot, white-hot rage at his cowardice. How could the person who promised to love and protect me do something so cruel, and then not even have the guts to be there for it? That was the ultimate betrayal. Realizing the man I married was capable of being that detached, that was a loss almost as big as the divorce itself. This whole journey is far from over, and I know so many of you watching have been through your own version of this. If you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear what helped you get through your darkest days. Your stories really do matter. And if you want to follow along as I try to figure out this new, scary path, please subscribe. Maybe we can find our way through it together. That meeting was my absolute rock bottom. But, weirdly, it was also a turning point. Sitting in my car, gasping for air through these ugly, hiccuping sobs, I had this moment of awful clarity. I couldn't make him face me. I couldn't make him care. But I could decide how I was going to handle it. I could let what he did completely destroy me, or I could start the long, painful process of saving myself. The first step was hiring my own lawyer, someone who was finally in my corner. The second was just letting myself feel everything, the shock, the rage, the deep, gut-wrenching sadness. I started writing everything down, just pouring it all out onto the page. I reached out to my family and a couple of close friends, and I let them be the support system he refused to be. Some days are still really, really hard. A song on the radio or a random memory can just knock me over. Healing isn't a straight line. It's messy, with good days and bad. But I'm slowly learning to figure out who I am without being part of a we. I'm learning to find my own strength, to rebuild my life not on the foundation of shared dreams, but on the bedrock of my own resilience. He may have outsourced the end of our story, but I'm going to be the only author of my next chapter. And it's going to be a story of healing, rediscovery, and maybe, eventually, hope.